Welcome back, everyone, to the Writer's Parachute, where we're guiding author and writer dreams to a perfect landing. Today, we have with us another very special guest. We have John Parra. He is an author illustrator, and we're going to be talking to him in just a few minutes about his new book, Growing an Artist. So we're very excited to have him. But of course, we always start out with just a few little things for you. Of course, we want to remind you that we have added here to the Writer's Parachute the Buy Me a Coffee, where you can become part of the team by supporting us. So if you are enjoying the information that we are providing you here on the Writer's Parachute, we do encourage you to become part of the team and go to Buy Me a Coffee and support us there. You'll find the links in the show notes at the end. So let's get on with today's show. Of course, we always start out with our topic of the week. So this week, we're going to talk to you about the extras that go into your book. A lot of people wait till the very, very end to talk about or think about or even organize the extras that go into their book. What are we talking about with extras? Well, we're talking about things such as illustrations, quotes, graphs, drawings, anything extra that you want to add in there. Could be links, it could be citations, it could be a lot of other things, it could be dedications. These are all the extras that go into your book that are neither the story nor required pages inside of your book. So we want to talk about those. Now, the most popular one, of course, is going to be illustrations. And we're going to throw this over to John in just a few minutes after I give you a few of my tips, because he has a different perspective for it for you. Now, mine is mostly going to be about self-publishing and maybe hybrid publishing, where you would hire directly an illustrator. And what I would say is think about your illustrations as you're writing the book. Make notes about what you are visualizing in your head that you want that illustration or that graph or whatever drawing that you want added to your book to look like. These are going to be invaluable when you're hiring an illustrator, because it gives you something definitive to tell them what it is you want. Because going to an illustrator and go, well, you know, I see this little boy playing with blocks on the floor, you're going to get 52 different illustrations, a little boy playing with blocks on the floor. You need to be a little more specific. What age is that little boy? What kind of blocks are you talking about? Are they alphabet blocks? Are they building blocks? What kind of blocks are they? What age is that child? What hair color do they have? What skin color would you like them to have? You know, is there anyone else in the room? Are they in a living room? Are they in a bedroom? Are they in a nursery? Where are they? You need that information to give to your illustrator. Now, of course, you're going to give them a lot of artistic license, because obviously this is what they do. This is what they are specializing in. So you do need to give them room to add their own flair and touch to it, but giving them some guidelines of the things that are important to you and are important to your book are very helpful in making this communication and working together on a book flow much smoother. Same thing goes with when you're doing graphs. If you're not doing your own graphs, if you're having to hire those out, make sure you have some understanding of what it is that you want those graphs to look like. Do you want them to be a certain color? Do you want them aligned in a certain way? Same thing with quotes. Do you want to use direct quotes? If you're doing direct quotes, where are you getting that information from? Don't just go grab a quote and go, oh, I'll look that up later. Get that citation at that moment. It's going to help you down the road. This is going to make everything a lot easier. So that's my thoughts on it. Is try to plan as you're going along. Keep notes for yourself. Make sure that you are making it easy for these outside professionals who are going to help you more smoothly, better, quicker, faster, and with a lot less headache and aggravation on everyone's part. So now I'm going to ask John if he can add a few things here from his perspective as an illustrator.
Well, no, I think those are all excellent suggestions. As if you're an author and you're looking for an illustrator, to give that research, that information. Often, also, I was going to say sometimes I'm working on picture book biographies. So if you're working on that, definitely photo references or ideas about the real life people in the book sometimes could be helpful. Or even maybe it's just a personal story and you want to share personal photos with the illustrator, that can help as well, to kind of keep that core and heart of the story also in the artwork.
That's excellent advice. And I do know a couple of excuse me, illustrators that have, that have included or incorporated family photos into the story because the story was centered around a specific family. So that does make it very helpful. And again, he brings up a very good point. If you're not exactly sure that you're good at describing what you want, then go look at pictures that are available, stock photos, pictures in magazines. It's like you don't want them to duplicate it exactly, but it gives them an idea of what you're looking for. Same thing if you have a particular style that you like of illustrations, often sending your illustrator some sample illustrations in the style that you like is very helpful to them so that they can match that style. Now, they're not going to duplicate it because, of course, we have copyright infringement requirements, but they can get fairly close to what you want and probably come up with something you're going to enjoy even better. So I don't have much else to add to that, but of course, here at the Writer's Parachute, if you guys have more questions and you need more information, please reach out to us, leave us a question or comment in the comments section here on the Writer's Parachute, either on YouTube or on the podcast channel that you're listening to. Or if you'd like to contact us direct, you can go to thewritersparachute.com and contact us there with your questions, and we'll try to get those answered to you as quickly as possible, and we might include your question on one of the shows. So let's get on with the show. Of course, we want to welcome John Parra here. He's an author, illustrator, and we're going to be talking to him about his new book, Growing an Artist. He's an award-winning illustrator, designer, author, and educator, best known for his art-illustrated Latino-themed children's picture books. His work on Frida Kahlo and her Animalitos was named a New York Times Best Illustrated Children's Book of the Year. His MTA art card poster, Birdhouse Subways, was displayed throughout the New York City subways, and his art has been seen in 6 U.S. Forever postage stamps titled Delicioso. He regularly speaks as a visiting artist at schools and literary conferences across the country, advocating art and reading education, and was also invited by the Metropolitan Museum of Art in New York City to present a special event about his career and illustrations. His new book, Growing an Artist, the story of landscaper and his son, is his debut title as both an author and illustrator, and received 3-starred reviews, and he currently lives with his wife in Queens, New York. Welcome to the Writer's Parachute, John. How are you today?
Oh, I'm very well. Thank you very much, Donna, for having me.
Oh, you're so welcome. I'm very excited. I've kind of followed your artwork for years, and we've kind of known each other through mutual acquaintances, but I was just like, oh yes, he wrote a book, he can come on my show. I'm like, this is exciting.
Well, it's also exciting for me because I get to talk about the writing side now that I've actually written the book. And so that's kind of fun. It kind of puts me outside of my comfort zone a little, but it's exciting to kind of delve into.
Right. Well, and I always find it fascinating when, like I said, when we were talking in the green room about you guys jumping the fence on, from being the illustrator artist over to being the writer. Now, as I said before, I would never jump it the other way because my is atrocious, but I do appreciate it. And you guys bring a much different perspective in the way that you approach writing, because you're approaching it more from a visual standpoint rather than the more traditional reading standpoint. So that's always fascinating to see the books and how you guys approach the story, because I really do love it. It's slightly different, but I find that the story kind of pops a little bit more through the illustration. So that's one of the things I have found with most author illustrators is you could read the book without the words or read the book without the illustrations, which is a tough feat to do, but you guys somehow are able to bring that across, and I'm always fascinated by that. So your book, Growing an Artist, is a personal story for you, and I wanted to know why this was an important story to share right now about your life.
I think this story, this story was with me for many years, and it is a personal story. It has to do with when I was growing up. I worked for my father, who was a landscape contractor, and I was also an artist too. So by going with my dad and ended up working for him for many, many years, we sort of collaborated together, not just with his work and the landscape and the construction, but very creatively, actually. And I was working with him on the landscape plans. And it really taught me a lot, especially as I got older, I really learned and appreciated that work ethic, how to appreciate nature, how to work collaboratively and creatively with others. So it really kind of set the foundation for my career going forward. And the book is sort of about these ideas, about a little boy who again goes with the father and is creative, and he brings along a sketchbook, and they kind of have these adventures, and they also have some heart to heart talks, because not everybody maybe appreciates what the work that they do. And so this is talks about other levels within the book, and it's kind of speaks about how to feel proud of who you are, where you come from, what you do for a living, sort of because some jobs, that we may have, kind of are unrecognized or maybe even looked down upon at some points. But this is how I feel like, well, I didn't feel that way. I felt very proud of what I did, and I felt very proud of working for my father. And I thought it was interesting and fascinating. And again, the lessons you learn, maybe in these jobs, you take them with you throughout your life, and then you apply them as you get older, especially, and that's going to make you more successful, and you're going to be developing even more skills than you could possibly, I think, imagine. So I think, and it's just a fun book. And again, I wanted to make sure that it was entertaining, that it was interesting, but that it had a lot of heart, and and in the end, the ideas that you have, the creativity that you have, can be made real. It can be turned into a real thing in real life, and to see that you have a sense of pride in what you do, and that's important. So I think that's those were some of the ideas. Again, it's got a lot in it, but again, at its heart, it's a lot of fun.
Well, and I love the fact that you're bringing into a children's book a story about not only yourself and the things you learned, but you talked a little bit about your father, and about that this was not just a secondary thing that he fell into. This was something that
No.
he made as a choice because it was what he was good at. And sometimes I think we discount that idea. And we certainly discount it a lot to children, where we tell them, oh, you need to achieve these high, lofty dreams. But, you know, for scientists to be good scientists, there needs to be somebody that cleans the lab. There needs to be
Yeah.
somebody that that makes sure that the parking lot is clean, and they're able to park there, and that the lights work, and all of these things. And what sometimes we feel like menial jobs are actually the most important ones. I mean, we see this when disasters hit, that who are the first people that are back out there working hard and are able to get people back to normal. There are a lot of these people that are seen in these unseen, uh, what we consider more menial jobs. And I think we need to change our thoughts about that. And that's what I did love about your book, is because it brings forward not only your love for your dad, and your love for nature and for doing the work and stuff, but that this was something that he was exceptionally good at, and he passed that worth ethic, and that kind of following his dreams, and you following your dreams, whether anybody else agreed with them, which is what I really loved about the story. And I think it will resonate very well with most kids, because they need to hear that you don't have to be a billionaire to be successful. You don't have to be a CEO of a corporation. It's like, we all can't be everything. We all can't be movie stars. We all can't be all the different things. We just have to figure out what we're good at and what makes us happy. And I do love that about, because I think that's underneath the story. And I don't want people to miss that, because it was very important to me when I was reading through the book, and I really did love it. And I want to know why you think this book is relevant now. I mean, I know why I think it's relevant, but why do you think it's relevant for now?
Well, I mean, I think it sort of has a timelessness. I wanted to actually not just relevant for now, but I think it has a timelessness because most kids are very, I mean, who doesn't know a child that's super creative in some way or another, whether it's through writing, whether it's through art, whether it's through music or dance or whatever it is that they're interested in. They're so creative. So this story, I mean, I wanted to speak to those kids, that can really see the potential in themselves and feel good about what they do, and just making it a part of your life, no matter what you end up doing in life. Like you say, you could be a CEO or you could do other things as well, but making it a part of your life, making art or music or writing, you feel better, you think differently, you problem solve better. That was the other really important lesson that I learned growing up. I think if I also owe any success that I've had over the years, is because I kind of will think creatively. And I think anybody you see successful in life will have to think creatively to achieve what they do in life. And it makes it fun and it makes it interesting. So there's some other themes like that I love talking about, that's sort of in the book, that's sort of as a positive message for kids. And again, and it's also about family relationships, because we all have those strong family relationships, no matter what background our families come from. And in this story, the family relationship, it revolves also around a small business. And as Americans, we all have, we love that kind of idea of, like, we're entrepreneurs and we have these small businesses. But often it's the families, it's not just the one person, but it's the families that are involved with that business. It's the kids also coming in. I've heard many, many stories over the years about this. And so I like that idea that, feeling good about that and feeling proud and kind of being able to contribute in a creative way makes it so special and unique and successful. So.
Right. Well, and what really resonated with me was the encouragement you were getting from your dad to not only work with him and see the value of what he was doing, but he also encouraged you to pull your art into that work. And I know for me, when I was growing up, I always wanted to be a writer. I've always wanted to be a writer. I've always wanted to tell stories. And I had forgotten until I read your book that, my parents would have me tell stories at dinner time. And I think that was their way to encourage me to keep working towards that. And I think we forget sometimes, because I had forgotten until you mentioned that. So that's a very good point too. It's like we've kind of forget, the encouragement that we have along the way that isn't blatant, isn't just in your face, like, oh, here, I'm going to make you this, or I'm going to help you do this. It's more of just that, tell us a story. You're a storyteller.
Abs-
Tell us a story.
absolutely. And ever since I was young, that's how my parents, every birthday I would get markers and pens because they knew I loved to draw, and paper. And also what happens is, I always tell people, the kids at school visits, if you like to draw or be creative or write or play music, also, if your parents don't know, let them know. If your teachers also, if I had wonderful teachers and mentors over the years that really supported and encouraged me to continue what I was doing and follow those dreams. Like, even though I didn't quite know where that was headed, that's okay. You don't always know where you're gonna end up sometimes. But if you just make it a part of your life and you keep going and keep progressing, but it was really important to have that support, through my parents, through my teachers, through mentors. They really made a huge difference in my life. And if I can, kind of get back now from where I'm at, I try to as well.
Right. Well, and it's fascinating because I remember growing up, for my birthday and Christmas, I was like always waiting for that, that package that had, journals or, new pens and pencils in it for me to write a story. So I know what you're talking about. You're just like, yes, I like this better. This is something for personally, just for me. It's not something I have to share with anybody else. So it did make a difference, and I love that. So I want to know, you've been an illustrator for a year, you've illustrated so many books, and we are going to link you guys in the show notes to all of the books that he's illustrated. His books are amazing. I love them. They do have that more of a Latino theme flair to it, but they're still very, very good. And I love the way that you ease the story forward. with your illustrations. It's like it just adds so much to it. So I want to know for you, how easy was it for you to make that transition from illustrator to writer?
Wow, that was a scary one actually, because for years my agent was talking about, oh, we're gonna write one and illustrate one, and I think I was, yeah, we're gonna do that, but I think in my head I probably was procrastinating quite a bit with it, until I started on this story. Even though I had these ideas for a while, I wasn't sure how it was gonna play out, and I never felt as strong as a writer, So thank goodness for editors. They make a huge difference. No matter what level you're at, when you're doing children's books, make sure other people read it, make sure other people can take a look at what you're writing, because sometimes what you write you might think it's good, but it's always helpful to have other people kind of going through it and kind of giving you some feedback for sure. And that's what happens. So everything's done one step at a time. I try to write as much as I could. I wanted to have more things written down than I would need for the story. That was important. I had other scenes, other possible things that were happening. And then once everything was sort of laid down, kind of all on the table, this is where you kind of have to roll up your sleeve and you have to start putting some direction in there. And thankfully, working with the editors, they kind of helped me guide me on this journey to put in, from point A to point B to point C to point D, and having the character arc and having all these ideas kind of flow better until you get to the end, where everything kind of comes together and it kind of encapsulates the purpose of the book, the heart of the book, in a meaningful way. And so that was exciting. It was so different, but also it was scary. It was, but exciting. And at the end, it was like, wow, this is something I never dreamed I'd be able to get to do, especially when I was younger. And but now it's a very empowering and wonderful feeling to have gone through it. And that's another thing. It's like sometimes you have to challenge yourself with things that may be outside your comfort zone, but it's important to do so because otherwise, it helps you grow. It helps you grow. You see the potential in things. You see the possibilities in things. Am I still going to also continue doing art more? Yes, of course I am. But this is going to also be a part of my life, and I'm going to make sure that that's going to continue going forward.
Well, and I love that. And, what he's explaining here through all of the process with his editor, he's just telling the story, because there's 100 different ways to tell a story, but there's only one good way to tell a story. So that's kind of what he's talking about. This organization is just making sure that we don't have the horse pushing the cart, we have the horse pulling the cart. you know so and that we have the wheels on first before we start dragging it down the lane with the horse. So
That helps.
it does help. So I mean, that's kind of an editor's job, is to kind of see through that flow. But I'm glad that has worked for you. And it is so much fun. And I agree with you. It's like expanding your comfort zone is so helpful, especially as a creative, because I know for me, it's like I don't draw, but I've attempted it in the privacy of my own home where nobody sees.
That's good. That's good.
But it gives me a very deep appreciation for those who do illustrations and do drawings and stuff like this, and because I struggle with it so much, and I'm just like, wow, it's like somebody can do this with ease is fascinating to me. And I've heard people from the other side going, well, what you do is fascinating. It's like I could not sit there and just somebody give me a line and I could come up with a whole story around it. But again, that's what I'm good at. But it does give you an appreciation for the other side and make it a little more understandable, as to what that other person may need. So when I'm working with my illustrator, like I said, I can kind of get the idea of what it is he needs to get into my head to follow the story. I'm very fortunate. I've had my illustrator for a very long time, and he does get me, which is really good. And it
That's
takes a
good.
while to kind of form that bond where they get where you're going with the story, because sometimes that's a challenge in itself. So I do appreciate that. So I want to know what you see or what you have seen with working with different people. What kind of mistakes do you see that authors are making, or missteps that they're making trying to get their books out with illustrations?
Well, I mean, I've been fortunate to work with, really, really great authors. So they're kind of at the, really good at what they do. It's hard for me to complain about them. But I have seen other books and stories that I've read from different people. Sometimes they people send me books and they like feedback or ideas of what they're working on. For authors, I think, working with different ideas. Sometimes they do try to do too much. They try to spell out too much. When you're doing a children's book, it's really a kind of a hand-in-hand experience, even though, it's like the illustrator wants to um, enhance your stories, enhance your words. So you don't have to describe everything necessarily, but you don't want to give the illusion that you don't give too little, I think, as well, where the illustrator doesn't know where to go unless you're writing in the notes, what to give to the illustrator. I think just the over explaining things sometimes is one of the mistakes, or I mean, I don't know if you'd call it a mistake. Sometimes it just seems like it's unnecessary, especially if you'll see it in the artwork. Like, where do you want it to be seen? Do you want to see it be seen in the words, or do you want to be seen in the art? Because there's two different things. Again, the art's going to just sort of enhance the words, and can say things that are not necessarily written. So that to me is also, maybe I see that sometimes in the stories. Also, maybe like just a clear definition of the character, how they look, how they dress, what kind of person they are, is important. I always start, and I think this is also with the story. I think this is relevant for the writer as well. But for me, I always start with the characters first. It's always important to start with whether your main character or two main characters or whatever it is, you start with that and you build the world around it. For me, and you build the story around those characters. If you can't define those characters first, it's going to be hard to kind of get that story together and sort of go forward with it, no matter what story you're telling. You have to kind of know who this character is. It doesn't have to necessarily be all written out, but you have to know who that person is, or animal or character or whatever it is, before you kind of continue down that road. So I think there'll be those ideas right there. Those are just two ideas that I know I've seen when I'm working, or I see from other books in this business.
Well, and I'm gonna add a little bit here to it. And what he's talking about is, like, especially with children's books, especially with children's picture books, you do have a limited number of pages. You do have a limited number of word count. So you don't want to waste word count by overly describing something that can be seen in an illustration. In picture books particularly, you are literally 50-50 with the text of the story and the illustrations. They both appear on every single page. Sometimes they do pop out, sometimes they do, full page illustrations, sometimes they do a double page layout. But again, if it's being obviously shown in the illustrations, like that, Sally's wearing a red dress, you wouldn't need to say that in the text, because they can see in the illustration that Sally is wearing a red dress.
That's it.
Or, that, 6 horses are pulling, the wagon. Well, horses are pulling the wagon because you can obviously see it in the illustration. There are 6 of them. This is what I'm talking about, where you have to balance that between the story and what the artist or the illustrator needs to know, and this artistic license that you're going to give them for room. And I agree with you on that. Over describing, especially in children's books, is a little confusing. And as a reading specialist, I will tell you it slows down the kids, because then they get confused. Because they're like, well, wait, why are they wearing a yellow dress instead of a blue dress? Or, it's slowing them down getting through the story. Whereas if they see it visually, it doesn't cause that pause in the reading. So I agree with you on that. And you're right about being able to define that character. This is one of the things that I tell people when they're going to look for an illustrator is to be able to fully describe one character, to fully describe that one character. And usually want to start with your main character because they're the most important. They carry the story. And
Yeah.
so when you're shopping for an illustrator, you want to make sure you send that description, that same exact description to every illustrator for sample drawings. Because if you're giving each of them a different description, how can you compare them? And and if it's important to you when you're writing the story, this is a little tip that I give out to people is, so if you need in your head to know that Sally is wearing a red dress, and I would say encapsulate that in parentheses so you know that that's going to come out later. That's just a reminder to you that you want to make sure the illustrator does put her in a red dress if that's important to the story or important to you in telling the story. So not that you necessarily need to drop these words when you're drafting and creating the story, but think about those descriptions and how many of them you can encapsulate in parentheses that can be later dropped. Because I will tell you, a lot of times, if you read the story and pull those out, as long as you have those illustrations backing it up, you're really not going to need them, and it's not going to affect the story one way or another. So I think those are great. Those are great advice. So here on the Writer's Parachute, we always talk to authors and writers and illustrators about their journey. And so we want to know, because most of them all have some obstacle, problem, or challenge when they're trying to write and publish their book. So we want to know what your obstacle or challenge was, and what do you think you learned from it?
Uh, let's see. Well, I mean, just getting started. I mean, I think that was the biggest issue for me with just getting started. Because sometimes what you have is too many ideas going on in your head, but nothing finished. I think that was my case. I had all these. Well, I kind of like this, and I kind of had this idea, and I kind of had that idea, but until you sit down in front of your computer and start writing and start writing and start writing,
Mm-hmm.
this is going to help focus you, and then pretty soon you're going to see where is it that your attention starts going to most. And I think so maybe it's the problem is you have too many ideas, and you just want to kind of focus on this one thing. And maybe that's why it was slowing you down. So that's kind of what happened to me. So again, just sitting down at the computer, writing and writing and writing, and then I found out, well, this is the story I really want to work on. This is the ideas I really want to think. Now this is okay. Now this is. It's almost like you're pushing that boulder, and the more you push it, it's gaining speed and gaining speed and gaining speed, and that's where you kind of want it to go. And once it starts picking up speed, it's like, okay, this is my direction now. So I think for me that was the issue, because thankfully again I have wonderful people helping me, you know, work on these words. I don't, again, I never thought of myself as an awesome writer or anything like that. I feel like art is definitely more my comfort zone. So again, overcoming some of those doubts, some of those thoughts about it's good to have good people around you who can give you honest feedback, talk to you about these things. But again, just kind of overcoming that obstacle for me was just focus on that story, focus on these ideas, was the sort of the turning point for me, to get this book done.
Well, and I understand that completely. I work with a lot of new authors, and one of the big stumbling blocks for especially brand new authors or people that just decided that they want to try writing books or have wanted to and are just now sitting down is, again, there's too many ideas. And so what I generally would tell people with this is take each one of those ideas and flesh it out. Try to follow it down that rabbit hole and see if it takes you anywhere. If you end up at a roadblock, well, okay, you're done with that one. Move on to the next idea, because the one that you're passionate about is the one that's going to keep going. It's the story
Exactly.
that's just never going to run into that roadblock that's going to stop you. Now you may run into some obstacles and some construction work along the way, but you're really not going to feel like you're stopped in your tracks and you don't know where the story is going to go from there. But and it is a fear for a lot of, they think, oh well, how can somebody have too many ideas? Well, we think circularly. We think about a lot of things at the same time. We hold multiple ideas in our head at the same time. And, it's like, when you're describing yourself, I mean, there are a lot of things that you do and that you're passionate about and that you want to do and that you think about and you read about, and they all spark ideas. But at the end of
Absolutely.
the day, you have to decide what you're actually passionate about and what you're just curious about. So,
Absolutely, for sure. That was it.
well, and that is the challenge of being a writer, is that first step is, what am I going to write about? Well, I'm going to back you up a step and say, what are you passionate about first?
Yeah.
So, because that's it. And you did find your passion. Your passion was in telling the story of what got you on your journey, what started you, what was the basis for your, which is an excellent place to start. Start with what you know. Everybody always says that, and it's true. Start with what you know, because then the rest of it will start flowing out. So, if you could talk to your younger self today, what do you think you would say?
Oh my goodness. Um, that's a tough one, you know. For many years, I didn't know I was going to grow up to be an artist or illustrator or author or any of these things at all because I had no frame of reference. So if I was talking to my younger self, I would say, don't worry about that yet. You know, this will come to you. Just be curious. Be curious, be open to different things because sometimes the things that you're curious or that you care about or that you like doing, which in my case was art, it's going to come to you and that'll attract people that come into your life that will then show you and also tell people what you love to do, you know, because that's how I kind of found out how to kind of travel this path. But you know, it's easy for me to sit here and tell you, you know, this is where you're going to end up. This is what you're going to do. But as my young self knew, it's like I just wanted to be in the moment. I wanted to be creative. I wanted to be curious. I just wanted to enjoy those moments. And if you know, if you put yourself also surround yourself with other people that are also creative. And that helped a lot. That will help you a lot on your journey because depending on where you are, you know, maybe it's where you live or it's harder to kind of find that path. But sometimes, you know, we live in a digital age now and it's easier to connect to people and reach out to people. You know, also those connections to other creative people. I'm grateful and thankful that I get to be friends and colleagues with some of the greatest children's books writers and illustrators in the country, and it makes a huge difference. It's inspiring to me. It that those things really keep you going in life, and it's a lot of fun.
Well, absolutely. I mean, I know for me that I always feel challenged by other authors and writers that are ahead of me and illustrators and people that have been there. But also for me, I had to accept from the point when I was young, when I really wanted to be a writer, to the point when I actually sat down and started, well, I've always been writing, but when I actually decided that I was going to jump off that cliff and write a book and publish it, uh, that there were things I needed to learn.
Yeah,
It's about, you know, managing and developing your craft, whether you're an illustrator, a writer, a poet, a musician. It's about developing that craft. And you never know where that journey is going to take you. And sometimes the little side trips, the little side roads that seem like they're getting you further and further away from your dreams actually teach you the most valuable lessons. They teach you the things, and even if that thing is, this is not what I want.
correct.
So
Absolutely.
don't discount the journey, because the journey is what makes it sweet when you do get to the end.
Yeah.
So I love that. So I have one more question for you here. So if so, what advice do you wish that you had known or that somebody had told you before you started your writing and publishing journey?
What advice? I would say sometimes you're gonna have moments where you feel like giving up. Sometimes also like you're not enough,
Mm-hmm.
and that's not the case at all. It's usually never the case actually. Um, it's okay. We all second guess ourselves all the time. Even me, where I'm at in my career, and I talk to many other friends and published writers and artists, and they themselves always feel imposter syndrome. Sometimes is what it's called, but um, pushing that aside and moving forward is maybe it's a sense of it's okay. You can do that. I You can give yourself permission to be brave and to do it. And that's the thing that I think just persistence and to keep going. Because in the end of the day, it's funny. I was at my alma mater talking to Art Center in Pasadena a few weeks ago, and I told the students there that when I was in school at Art Center, I wasn't the best student. I wasn't the top of my class. I wasn't number one. I wasn't, I was good. I mean, maybe top 20. I don't know. On any given day, who knows how they rate an artist or writer or whatever you're at.
Mm-hmm.
But I was persistent. I was committed to this, to doing this, and just seeing where it would go.
Mm-hmm.
And that meant working hard. And again, like Donna said, you have to work hard and develop your craft and be good at what you do.
Mm-hmm.
And that is key. And just keep pushing yourself along and see where it goes. That's kind of my philosophy. I just seeing how far I could take this, basically.
Right, which reminds me of my mother. Is like I said, as I get older and older, I find that my mother's wisdom that I didn't understand with a kid makes so much sense now. And one of the things that she used to tell me is you don't learn anything by being perfect, you learn by messing up.
Yeah.
And sometimes that is, where we are with this kind of imposter, or I'm not good enough, I'm not this or that or the other thing, is we forget that that's the learning part. That's the part. And for every famous person that you see out there, a best-selling artist, a best-selling illustrator or writer or actor or whoever is out there, I guarantee they messed up a lot, but they kept doing it. They kept learning. They kept moving forward. Every artist that is a good illustrator, every writer that's a good writer, if you go back and look at what they started with, you're going to be shocked. But you know what? They kept learning, they kept pushing forward, and they kept putting it out there. They kept going to that cliff and go, you know what? I'm going to jump because this is the best I can do right now. I'll
Yeah.
get better next time. And that's kind of the mindset we have to have. I laugh. People point out that there are mistakes in my books. And I go, yes, I know there's mistakes in my books. And I go, and I use it for a couple of different reasons. I will tell, the kids, I'm like, if you can find 5 or more mistakes in my book, I'll send you a free t-shirt. Which is, I mean, is a little sneaky way to get them to read the book and read the book a little harder than normal. But also, I wanted my readers to see that development, see that each book tells a better story, that each book gets better and better, and the characters grow, and I grow as a writer and everything like that. Because I think there's a value in that. Because if we only see the perfect product at the end and we never see the mistakes or the growth of the author, it's like we're kind of presenting a false narrative for those coming behind us, because they're like, oh, well, your first book was perfect. And I'm like, yeah, after 52, different updates and changes and corrections. It's like, but it never really bothered me to show that, I'm human. I make mistakes. Things get past me, and it's okay, because this is how we learn. so,
Absolutely. Absolutely.
and it's like, again, it's a little bit of trickery, but this is kind of the way I look at it. And as long as I accept that I don't have to be perfect, I just have to be better than I was the last time, then it kind of keeps me away from that imposter syndrome. Because I think that it gets tied up a lot of times in this, this fear of not being perfect. it's not the fear that you can't do it, it's the fear that you're not going to do it well. So
Right.
I find that interesting. So what's next?
Well, I have another book that will be coming out next year. It's called Spanish is the Language of My Family, written by Michael Genhart. And it's about a little boy who enters a Spanish spelling bee and gets some help from his abuelita, grandmother.
Mm-hmm.
So there's some really wonderful story there. And I think just last week I signed for another book coming out. I can't say too much about that with Simon Schuster, though. That'll be, the following year. And there's also potentially some room that I'm working and writing another book because again, I had so much fun writing this one. So this is a part of it. Some other things coming out. Well, this holiday is actually, I did a lot of illustration work for Target. I did a whole Christmas line for them. So after Halloween, you'll see in all Target stores a lot of my Halloween line, on Halloween, Christmas line of holiday wrapping gift bags and a lot of fun stuff with that. So you'll see my art there.
That is amazing. See, he's not just an illustrator, he is a full-blown artist and he's going in so many directions. And we're so thankful that you're willing to come here on the Writer's Parachute with us. So we want to, of course, talk to you about where your book is now available.
Well, bookstores, most bookstores have them, and of course online, all the major distributors. And I always encourage independent bookstores if you can, try to order through them. But yeah, so look for my book, Growing an Artist. Here we go.
Yes, we're very excited for you with this book. And of course, as you guys know, here on the Writer's Parachute, we will have the links to not only John's website, but we'll link you to his book, and we'll also link you to some of the books that he has illustrated. It's a very long, lofty list that we'd like you to go take a look at because they're amazing. And of course, we want to follow his journey. And of course, this Christmas, a look for John Parra's art at Target on the Christmas aisle. All right. Well, that's very exciting. So, also, we wanted to know where we can find you on social media if they would like to follow you on your journey.
Yeah, most of my all my social medias are John Parra Art or at John Parra Art, JohnParraArt .com or whatever, or just John Parra Art on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, things like that.
Okay. Are you on TikTok?
I am not on TikTok. My granddaughter is, but I'm not.
Well, I have to tell you, I've been jumping over onto TikTok and I'm having a lot of fun. And I know that I hear this a lot where people are just like, oh, I don't know, I just don't know that platform. And I'm like, well, how I learned all of my social media because I'm old. I'm really old. I'm a lot older than most people realize. I just look at it this way. I'm like, I just go over there and I look at what everybody else is doing, and then I just kind of figure out how it's going to work for me. And then I just do what I think is right, because what I find fascinating is there's always somebody willing to send you a private message going, you really shouldn't do that, or you should do it this way. And I'm like, oh, thank you. See, I don't need somebody to teach me. And it's really fun to kind of just play with the different platforms. I'm having fun over on TikTok. I mean, a lot of it's a bit crazy, but I use social media more as a tool rather than as a social room. So, but that's okay. So, I encourage you to go check out TikTok. I think you would be very happy with going over there, especially as an artist. They seem to resonate really well with the like little video clips and stuff with art. So that's
I will take a look.
all right. So, do you have any other events coming up that you'd like to share with us?
Most of all the events are done for this year, a couple school events, but next year I'll be doing some book festivals. I believe I'm at the Gaithers Book Festival, Hudson Book Festival already, and something in Washington, D.C., but I can't yet say about that yet.
Okay, great. So, where would they go to find upcoming events for you? Would that be on?
Oh, well, you can definitely find it on my, either through Facebook or social media or my website at johnparraart.com. Again, JohnParraArt.com. I have a little, events section there.
Okay, great. Well, again, like I said, I'll remind you that we do have all of the listing of John's website, his social media accounts, and the links to get to his book. So, was there anything else that you wanted to share with us before I go pull the ripcord on our tip of the week?
Oh no, you've been more than wonderful, and thank you so much for this amazing, amazing interview.
Oh, you're very welcome. We'll stick around with us. So, we're going to talk a little bit about our tip of the week, which we're going to talk a little bit about a couple of things that John brought up when we were talking to him about some obstacles and problems that he was having. And, we talked a little bit about those, but let's talk a little bit deeper about this fear and imposter syndrome. I see this a lot. And unfortunately, social media is only going to exacerbate that problem because what we see is we see other people achieving what we would like. And my first response to that is you have to remember that being a published author and a writer is about a marathon. It is not a sprint. If you don't get that review this month, there's next month, there's 6 months from now, there's a year from now. That book is going to be out there for a very, very long time. If you don't get that award this year, there's always next year, there's always the next award that comes up. If you're not getting that promotion that you want to do, then that again will come up next month. If you don't have the money to promote your book right now, then create a budget, figure out how to get yourself to that point in time. So we have to stop comparing ourselves to other authors, especially in the children's author industry, but this goes for all industries. As a former teacher, former reading specialist, and as a parent and a grandmother, I have never been in a school, a library, a classroom, or home with a bookshelf where there is only one author, one genre, or one style of books. They are crowded with multiple authors, multiple styles of books, multiple types of subjects and topics. I think our real competition is just to get on that bookshelf. It is not with each other because, as we always say, your book may resonate with a lot of people, but it may not resonate with everyone. So we need to stop tearing each other's down and stop trying to compete with each other. We just need to work together and help each other. Because again, all we need to really do is get ourselves on that bookshelf with the other books. So it's not about the other person, it's about your book and getting it to where it needs to be. And that's to your audience, not other authors. So that's what I'm going to say about that. And then the other thing we talked about was too many ideas. Too many ideas comes from not buckling down. Now, again, we talked a little bit about that, following your passion and following these stories. If you truly have too many ideas and you really don't have a direction to go, but sometimes having too many ideas is just a distraction. It's a way to keep you from writing. So, as John mentioned, it's more about perseverance and persistence. It is about sitting down and writing. It is sitting down and telling that story. Even if you have to tell 15 stories to decide which one you're passionate about, which one you want to flesh out, which one you want to actually progress with. So don't let the idea of too many ideas slow you down. A lot of times, what I do myself, I'm active imagination. My brain does not like to shut down at any one time. So I'm constantly dealing with that. So we sorry about that, almost dropped my phone. We live in a world where we have amazing tools. We carry around a computer in our pocket. This fascinated my parents, who were born in the early 20s of the 20th century. And write down your ideas, make memos, video, audio memos, or whatever you want to do. Write down these ideas, even if you just talk them out in your head for a couple of minutes, because that clears your head. Another one of the things that I really appreciate and recommend is and again, I am not an affiliate for this, so I get no money for this, but one of the great books that I found is The Artist's Way by Julia Cameron. Now, whether you're a writer, an artist, a musician, or whatever, I think you're going to find some valuable tips in her book. And because she approaches it with our mind is cluttered, as we talked about earlier, with so many things. So the point is to get the clutter out of your head so that you can focus on what you need to focus on. So think about that. If you could just sit down for a few minutes at the beginning of your workday, at the end of your day, or whenever it works best for you to clear your mind, sit down and write down all of the things that are cluttering up your head. That to-do list, those appointments that you need to make, those phone calls that you need to make, that email that you need to make a list, get it out of your head, get it on paper. That way you can clear your mind and focus on what it is you need to do. So again, too many ideas, I think, is a distraction. I think it's something that we can manage if we make an effort and we're persistent. So I hope that that is helpful for you guys. Of course, as always, if you would like more information about the topics and subjects that we talk about here on the Writer's Parachute, we encourage you to leave us a comment here on the Writer's Parachute, either on YouTube or on the podcast channel that you're listening to. Also, you can reach out to us at thewritersparachute.com and contact us with your questions or anything else that you would like to talk to us about. All right. Well, of course, we want to thank our special guest today, John Parra. He's an author illustrator. We encourage you to go out and grab a copy of his new debut book, Growing an Artist. I think you're going to love it. And of course, we want to make sure we have him come back when he has his next book out and available. But as always, I hope that all of your writing dreams land well. Until next time, bye.